A billionaire took a homeless woman as his girlfriend to his ex-fiancée's wedding, and what she did changed everything. He took a homeless woman to his ex-fiancée's wedding to humiliate the woman who broke him. But when she took the mic, her words didn't just shatter the room, they changed everything. What she revealed turned his revenge into something far more dangerous. Before we begin, please like, subscribe and share with someone you love. Also tell us in the comments where you're watching from. And get ready, because this story will make you believe that even the broken can rewrite destiny. It started with a wedding invitation, one that shattered billionaire Wayne Reed's pride into pieces. He had everything: power, control, the kind of success people only dream of. But the woman who once promised forever, Vanessa Cole, had left him for another man, and now she was marrying his greatest rival. The whole city was talking. To everyone else, it was just society gossip. But to Wayne, it was a public execution of his pride. Determined not to face humiliation, he decided he would show up, but with someone by his side who would make Vanessa question everything she thought she knew about him. That's when fate placed Serenity Winstone in his path, a young black woman sitting on the city sidewalk, her clothes torn, her face marked by hardship, but her eyes fierce with unbroken fire. He stopped his car, and for a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then she looked up at him and said, "You're blocking the sun." That single sentence would change both their lives forever. Because what started as an impulsive act of pride became a story of revenge, redemption, and forbidden love. Wayne Reed didn't know what possessed him to say those words, to make that reckless, absurd offer to a woman who looked like she hadn't eaten a proper meal in days. Maybe it was humiliation, the ache of betrayal, or his own ego clawing for something, anything that could make him feel in control again. Whatever it was, as he stood there on that noisy downtown sidewalk, his polished shoes just inches from Serenity Winstone's torn sneakers, he felt something stir in him that he couldn't name. The woman didn't move. She just sat there, her back straight, her chin lifted slightly as if daring him to retract the offer. "Say that again," she said, her voice steady, unhurried. "I said," Wayne repeated, "I'll pay you to come with me to a wedding. One night. As my girlfriend." A slow, humorless smile curved her lips. "You're serious?" "Very." She tilted her head, studying him. "You think I'm the kind of woman who'd sell herself for a night in a fancy dress?" Wayne exhaled sharply, frustration cutting through his voice. "I think you're someone who needs an opportunity. And I'm offering one." Serenity's gaze flicked to his expensive watch, his tailored suit, then back to his face. Her eyes didn't soften, they sharpened. An opportunity or a performance? For a moment, neither spoke. The city noise buzzed around them, but it felt like they stood in a pocket of silence. Then she said quietly, "I'll do it." Wayne blinked, surprised by how quickly she agreed. "But," she added, rising to her feet and brushing off the dirt from her jeans, "no pity. You don't get to look at me like I'm broken. You needed someone for a show, fine. But don't treat me like a project." Wayne nodded, even though something about the word project stung. "Agreed." Serenity's smirk deepened. "Good. Now, what's the dress code for the circus?" Wayne didn't answer. He just gestured toward his car, a sleek black Mercedes parked by the curb. The contrast between them was absurd. Him, every inch the billionaire in his measured confidence. Her, all rough edges and stubborn pride. As they drove through the city, Serenity stared out the window, her reflection flickering in the glass. "Why me?" she asked suddenly. Wayne kept his eyes on the road. "You were there." "That's not an answer." He hesitated. "You didn't flinch when I spoke to you. Most people either beg or look away. You didn't." Serenity huffed a faint laugh. "So you picked me because I didn't look at you like a god?" Wayne didn't reply, but her words lingered. When they pulled up to the La Maison Royale Hotel, the doorman froze at the sight of Serenity stepping out of the car. Her clothes were worn, her hair tangled, but her posture was regal. There was something about the way she moved, unbothered, unashamed, that made people hesitate to judge her aloud. Wayne's assistant, Rachel, met them at the entrance, her confusion visible. "Mr. Reed, is this?" "Yes," Wayne interrupted coolly. "Get the suite ready and call the stylist team. I want everything done in 2 hours." Rachel's brow furrowed. "For her?" Wayne's eyes cut to her sharply. "That's the point." Serenity caught that exchange and smiled faintly. "You really enjoy unsettling people, don't you?" "Only when they deserve it," Wayne replied. Inside, the marble floors gleamed. Guests turned to stare, some whispering. Serenity ignored them all, walking as if she belonged there. Wayne noticed it, the straight shoulders, the composed silence. She wasn't new to spaces like this. In the penthouse suite, stylists and attendants flooded in, whispering, exchanging curious glances. Serenity stood still as they circled her. A hairstylist touched her tangled curls gingerly. "We'll have to cut some of it," she said softly. Serenity gave a small shrug. "It's just hair. It grows back." Hours passed. Makeup brushes swept across her skin, stylists worked quietly, and Wayne found himself standing by the window, unable to focus on his phone. Every few minutes, his eyes drifted to her reflection in the mirror. When they were done, the head stylist stepped aside. "Mr. Reed," she said gently. "She's ready." Wayne turned. For a long, disorienting moment, he forgot how to breathe. Serenity Windstone no longer looked like the woman he'd found on the street. Her hair now framed her face in soft curls, her skin glowed under the chandelier light, and her eyes, those defiant, unbreakable eyes, seemed sharper, clearer, as if she had stepped back into herself. The black evening gown hugged her form elegantly, modest yet commanding. But what stunned him wasn't the dress. It was her presence. She didn't look transformed, she looked restored. Serenity glanced at herself in the mirror, her reflection still, unreadable. Then very softly, she whispered, "Haven't seen her in a long time." The room went silent. Even Rachel, who had been skeptical from the start, lowered her eyes. Wayne stepped closer. "You've done this before," he said quietly. Her gaze flicked to him through the mirror. "Done what?" "Lived in this world." A pause. Then, with a faint smile that didn't reach her eyes, she replied, "Maybe once." Wayne's curiosity deepened, but he didn't press further. Instead, he said, "You'll need to stay at the hotel tonight. The event is tomorrow afternoon. Rachel will make sure you have everything you need." Serenity nodded. "Fine." She turned toward the window, looking out at the glittering skyline. "Funny," she murmured, "from up here, the city looks beautiful. But when you're down there, it feels like it's choking you." Wayne studied her, realizing that every sentence she spoke carried more weight than she let on. Later that night, as he prepared to leave, he found her sitting by the suite's balcony door, barefoot, a glass of water in her hand. "Why do you hate her so much?" she asked suddenly. "Who?" "Your ex-fiancée. The one whose wedding you're crashing with me." Wayne stiffened. "I don't hate her." "Sure you do," Serenity said, sipping her water. "People only pull stunts like this when they're trying to prove something." His jaw clenched. "She humiliated me. I built her career, her company, everything she has, and she left me for a man she once called pathetic." Serenity looked at him for a long time. "Then you don't need revenge. You need closure." Wayne gave a short, bitter laugh. "You think there's a difference?" "There is," she said softly. "Revenge keeps her name in your mouth. Closure makes you forget it." Her words hit him harder than he expected. He turned away, unwilling to let her see how much they stung. When he finally left, he caught her reflection one last time, barefoot, elegant, and unafraid, sitting in a room meant for royalty. He wondered then if bringing her into his world was a mistake or destiny. The next morning, Serenity woke early. The city below buzzed faintly through the tall windows. She showered, dressed in the robe left out for her, and walked to the mirror. Her reflection stared back, a woman who looked nothing like the one Wayne had found. But her eyes hadn't changed. They still carried that fire. Rachel entered, holding a designer clutch. "Your car will be ready soon. Mr. Reed asked me to check if you're prepared." Serenity turned, her voice calm. "Prepared for what?" Rachel hesitated. "For them." "Them?" "The world he lives in," Rachel said quietly. "They're not kind." Serenity smiled faintly. "Neither am I." When Wayne returned to pick her up, even he had to take a breath before speaking. "You clean up well," he said, his tone attempting casualness but failing. Serenity arched a brow. "That's the compliment? Clean up well?" He almost smiled. "Would you prefer you look stunning?" "I'll take honest over charming," she replied. Wayne studied her a moment longer, then said, "You don't seem nervous." "Should I be? People will stare." "Let them," she said simply. "They've stared before." As they drove toward the wedding venue, the silence between them thickened, not awkward but charged. Wayne found himself stealing glances at her. There was something unsettling about how composed she was, like she wasn't walking into enemy territory but reclaiming it. Finally, he asked, "Who are you really, Serenity?" She turned her head, her eyes glinting like dark glass in the sunlight. "The wrong person to underestimate. Because sometimes revenge doesn't come in fury or flame. It walks into a ballroom in a black dress and a quiet smile." The car rolled to a slow stop outside the glass-paneled Riverside Grand Hotel, where the city's wealthiest gathered under a canopy of lights that glittered like captured stars. Flashbulbs exploded. Reporters crowded the carpet, calling names, shouting greetings. The crowd parted as Wayne Reed stepped out of his car, tall, composed, and unreadable. Then came the gasp. Because on his arm was a woman none of them expected. Serenity Windstone. Her gown was a masterpiece of deep emerald silk, hugging her like it had been made just for her. The necklace at her throat gleamed softly under the spotlights, her curls pinned in a way that framed her face like art. But what stunned everyone wasn't the dress, it was her composure. She didn't flinch under the flashes. She didn't shrink from the whispers. She looked around at the crowd with quiet command, the faintest smile playing on her lips as if she'd been here before. Wayne's hand tightened slightly on hers, not to control her, but to anchor himself. The woman he'd picked off the street now carried herself like royalty. Inside, the ballroom shimmered with gold and glass. Chandeliers dripped crystal, candles flickered along mirrored tables, and the air smelled faintly of roses and wealth. Every guest who mattered in the city was here, politicians, investors, media faces, all dressed in their finest arrogance. At the far end of the room stood Vanessa Cole, Wayne's ex-fiancée, beautiful, polished, and deadly as ever. Her smile froze when she saw them. Her groom, Ethan Blackwell, leaned toward her. "You okay?" Vanessa didn't answer. Her gaze stayed locked on Serenity. Wayne felt the shift immediately, the ripple of tension threading through the room as they walked toward their seats. Conversations hushed. People stared. He almost smirked. Let them. This was exactly what he wanted, to take back power, to show Vanessa that he hadn't been broken by her betrayal. And yet, something about the calm in Serenity's stride made him feel like he wasn't in charge anymore. They reached their table. Wayne pulled out Serenity's chair, and as she sat, the soft rustle of her dress drew the attention of an older couple nearby. The woman leaned in, whispering, "Who is she?" Serenity caught the question and smiled at them, warm but unreadable. "Just someone lucky enough to get an invitation," she said lightly. The woman blinked, embarrassed, and turned away. Wayne leaned toward her, his voice low. "You're enjoying this." "I'm surviving it," Serenity replied. "There's a difference." He glanced around the room, noticing heads turning in their direction. The envy, the whispers, the subtle glares, it should have thrilled him. It used to. But tonight, it only felt hollow. He looked at Serenity again. Her posture was flawless, her tone measured, her eyes scanning the room as if she were reading people's stories without words. She didn't belong there, and yet somehow she fit. Then, the sound of footsteps on marble. Wayne. That voice, soft, deliberate, laced with venom. Vanessa. She approached with the precision of a serpent, her white gown glittering under the lights. Cameras discreetly turned. Guests leaned closer. Vanessa, Wayne greeted, his expression perfectly neutral. She smiled, a blade hidden in silk. I didn't expect to see you tonight. Why not? He said smoothly. I received an invitation. Yes, but you weren't supposed to accept it. Her laugh was light, rehearsed. But when her gaze shifted to Serenity, the edges of her smile trembled. And you must be. Serenity met her eyes without flinching. The woman who came after you. The silence that followed was sharp enough to cut glass. A few guests gasped. Ethan's brow creased. Vanessa blinked, her composure fracturing for the briefest second. Then she laughed again, too loudly. Well, I hope you're as patient as you are bold. He's a difficult man to keep happy. Serenity smiled faintly. Good thing I'm not trying to keep him happy. The crowd around them murmured. Wayne could almost feel the shift, the whispered awe, the curiosity. Serenity wasn't playing a part. She was commanding the stage. Vanessa recovered quickly, touching Wayne's arm. You look, well. I'm glad. He inclined his head. You seem to be doing fine yourself. Oh, more than fine, she purred. Ethan and I are launching a new project, an urban redevelopment initiative. You'd be surprised how lucrative cleaning up the city can be. At that, Serenity's smile flickered, just for a second. Wayne caught it, a flash of something dark behind her calm. He couldn't place it, but it unsettled him. Vanessa noticed too. Her gaze narrowed slightly before she excused herself, her laughter echoing too bright as she walked away. When she was gone, Wayne turned to Serenity. What was that? Serenity swirled her champagne, eyes glinting. Nothing. Don't lie to me. She looked at him then, her voice low but steady. You brought me here for revenge, remember? Just let me play my part. The music swelled, the dinner began, and the evening blurred into elegant chaos. Laughter, champagne, small talk, all of it blended together. Yet beneath the glitter and glamour, tension simmered like a hidden current. Everywhere Wayne went, eyes followed him, and her. He could hear the whispers behind fans and wine glasses. Who is she? She's not from around here. She's too poised to be random. He should have felt vindicated. Instead, he found himself watching Serenity, really watching her. The way she listened more than she spoke. The way she smiled just enough to disarm, but never too much to invite intrusion. And the way she carried a sadness beneath her poise, like someone who'd already lost everything once. When the first dance began, Serenity leaned closer. You don't dance much, do you? He smirked. Not my style. Then tonight's a good night to change that. She stood, extending her hand. Wayne hesitated, then took it. The crowd parted as they stepped onto the dance floor. The orchestra's notes slowed to a haunting rhythm. Serenity's hand rested against his shoulder, her other hand in his. She moved with surprising grace, her body following his lead as if they'd danced 100 times before. Where did you learn to dance like this? Wayne asked quietly. She smiled faintly. From a time when I had something to dance for. He frowned. You speak like someone twice your age. Maybe I've lived twice as much. They turned, their reflection flashing briefly in the mirrored wall beside them. For a moment, Wayne forgot where they were. The cameras, the whispers, the crowd, all faded. It was just her. Then Serenity leaned closer, her lips near his ear. "You're not the only one here tonight seeking revenge." Wayne's steps faltered. He looked down at her, his voice low. "What does that mean?" Serenity didn't answer. Her smile was soft but unreadable, her eyes flicking to the far end of the ballroom where Vanessa stood, laughing with her new husband. The music swelled again. Serenity stepped back, bowing her head slightly. "Smile, Wayne," she whispered. "You're being watched." After the dance, Wayne escorted her back to their table, but his mind was elsewhere. She wasn't nervous. She wasn't overwhelmed. She wasn't even pretending anymore. Serenity moved like a woman who'd come here with purpose, and not just his. When he caught her glancing again toward Vanessa, something twisted inside him. It wasn't jealousy, it was realization. She knew her. Or worse, Vanessa knew her. As the night wound down, Vanessa took the microphone to thank the guests. Her voice carried over the room like honeyed glass. "It's been a beautiful night, surrounded by friends and family. I couldn't be more grateful for the love that built this moment." Serenity's lips curved into a small, bitter smile. "Love built it, huh?" she muttered under her breath. Wayne heard. "What's that supposed to mean?" Serenity didn't look at him. Nothing yet. When Vanessa finished her speech, applause echoed. Serenity joined in politely, her eyes cool and sharp. And Wayne, for the first time that night, felt something shift. The revenge he thought he was orchestrating no longer felt like his. It felt like hers. Outside, when the night was over and the crowd dispersed, Wayne opened the car door for her. She paused before getting in, her face turned toward the glittering hotel lights. "Well," she said softly, "that was interesting." He folded his arms. "You were incredible in there." "I wasn't acting," she said. "That's the difference." Her tone was distant, unreadable. Wayne studied her, the question pressing harder now. "You knew her, didn't you?" She looked at him, her gaze cool. "Good night, Wayne." And with that she slid into the car, leaving him standing in the chill of the night, realizing for the first time that the woman he'd thought he'd brought into his story might have brought him into hers. The city looked different at night. After the laughter, the music, the champagne, after the lights and the whispers, everything felt muted, as if the whole world was holding its breath. Wayne's car cut through the quiet streets, its headlights slicing through the darkness. Serenity sat beside him, staring out the window, her face unreadable. He'd meant to congratulate her, to tell her she'd handled herself brilliantly at the wedding. But the words died on his tongue the moment she said that one sentence on the dance floor. "You're not the only one here tonight seeking revenge." That line had changed everything. Now, the silence between them was heavier than the air outside. Wayne's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "You knew her," he said finally. Serenity didn't move. "Who?" "Vanessa." Her lips twitched faintly, but her gaze never left the window. Everyone at that wedding knew Vanessa Cole. She made sure of it. "That's not what I meant." His tone sharpened. "You've met her before. You looked at her like you wanted her to burn." She turned her head slowly, her dark eyes meeting his. "And what if I did?" Wayne exhaled through his nose, forcing control back into his voice. "Then I deserve to know why." "Do you?" "Yes." Finally, she looked away from him, her reflection flickering in the glass. "You're the one who dragged me into this, Wayne. You wanted to use me to humiliate your ex. You never asked who I was before offering me a deal. So why pretend now that you care?" Her words hit their mark. Wayne clenched his jaw, staring ahead. "I don't pretend. I just don't like surprises." Serenity laughed softly, without warmth. "Then you shouldn't have picked me." When they reached the hotel, Serenity stepped out first, her heels clicking against the marble driveway. Wayne followed her into the elevator, the air between them charged with unspoken things. He watched her reflection in the mirrored walls as the elevator rose. Her posture was perfect, but there was tension in her shoulders, a battle she refused to let show. When the doors opened, she stepped into the suite without waiting for him. Wayne closed the door behind them. "You're hiding something," he said. She turned to face him, her calm unraveling for the first time. "Of course I am. Everyone is. Enough games." He took a step forward, his voice low. "Who are you, Serenity?" Her chin lifted. "Why does it matter?" "Because I need to know if tonight was real, or if I was just another one of your performances." A flash of anger crossed her face. "Performance," she repeated. "You think that's what this is? You handed me a script, Wayne. I just read it better than you expected." He froze. She walked past him, her voice trembling with quiet fury. "You think I did this for you? You think you're the only one Vanessa Cole ever hurt?" Wayne turned slowly. "What did you just say?" Serenity stopped. For a moment, her defenses flickered, and beneath them, pain surfaced. "My father," she said softly. "He was an architect. Brilliant, kind, too trusting for his own good. He owned a firm, Windstone Designs. You might have heard of it once. They were working on a massive urban project, luxury housing, government contracts. And then one day it was all gone." Her voice dropped lower. "He was accused of embezzlement. Fraud. The company collapsed overnight. He lost everything, his name, his reputation, our home. He never recovered. Died 3 years later of a heart attack in a one-room apartment." Wayne's throat tightened. "And Vanessa?" Serenity looked up at him, her expression cold and sharp. She was his partner. The one who signed the papers. The one who framed him. For a moment, the room seemed to tilt. Wayne's breath left him in a harsh exhale. He backed away, rubbing a hand over his face. "You're telling me Vanessa destroyed my family to build hers," Serenity finished, her tone steady. "Yes." The silence stretched. Only the hum of the city below filled it. Wayne stared at her, his mind racing back. Vanessa's sudden rise in business, the mysterious investor she'd once claimed to have outsmarted, the unexplained rumors she'd shut down. It made sense now. Too much sense. He swallowed hard. "So this wasn't coincidence. You didn't just stumble into my path." Serenity met his gaze without flinching. "Maybe fate wanted me to finish what she started." Wayne paced, anger and confusion wrestling inside him. "You used me." Her voice was calm. "You used me first." He stopped. "You saw a woman sitting on the street," she said, her words cutting through the air. "And you thought she'd be perfect for your revenge fantasy. Someone disposable. Someone you could dress up and show off to make your ex jealous. That's not what. Isn't it?" He didn't answer. Serenity's tone softened, but it lost none of its edge. "I didn't plan this, Wayne. You found me. But when I saw her, when I realized who she was, I decided I wouldn't stay invisible anymore." Her voice cracked on the last word. She turned away, blinking back emotion. Wayne wanted to argue, but her pain was too raw to doubt. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked quietly. "Because you wouldn't have believed me." "I would've." "No, you wouldn't." She looked over her shoulder. "Men like you only see truth when it costs you something." The words cut deeper than she probably intended. Wayne's jaw tightened. For years, he'd built walls of control and reason around himself. He'd prided himself on reading people, on staying detached. But standing there in front of her, this woman who had turned his act of pride into something far bigger, he realized she'd read him instead. He sat down, the exhaustion catching up to him. "So what now?" Serenity crossed her arms. Now? You stop pretending you're in control of this story. He looked up. You think you're the one in control? She smiled faintly. No. But I know what it feels like to have nothing left to lose. Her words hung heavy in the air. Wayne leaned forward, elbows on his knees. You want revenge on her. Serenity's gaze flicked away. I want justice. There's a difference. He studied her face, the composure, the fire behind her calm. He'd underestimated her before, dismissed her as a symbol, a prop. But now he saw her for what she truly was, dangerous, brilliant, and heartbreakingly human. You planned something, he said slowly. I planned to survive, she replied. Everything after that just happened. He gave a low, incredulous laugh. You walked into that wedding knowing she'd recognize you, didn't you? Not at first, Serenity admitted. But the way she looked at me, it confirmed everything. She doesn't remember names, just faces she stepped on. And when she remembers yours. Serenity met his gaze. Then she'll know the ghosts she buried are still breathing. The room went quiet again. Wayne stood and walked toward the window, looking down at the city lights reflecting in the river. He could see his own reflection faintly beside hers. She ruined your life, he said. She ruined a lot of lives, Serenity corrected. Mine just happened to be one she couldn't finish off. He turned to her. And what about me? What am I to you in all this? Her expression softened just slightly. The irony, she murmured. You wanted to use me to get to her. But you were already part of the story she started. You just didn't know it yet. Wayne's chest tightened. What are you talking about? Serenity looked at him for a long moment, then shook her head. Not tonight. You're not ready for that part. Try me. Her eyes glinted in the dim light. You wouldn't like what you find. He took a step closer, his voice quieter now. You think I scare that easily? No, she said. I think you've been scared for a long time. You just hide it better. The words sank deep, disarming him. He searched her face, but she was already turning away. I'm done answering questions, Serenity said softly. You have enough truth for one night. Wayne nodded slowly, though the tension didn't leave his body. He didn't know whether to be angry, impressed, or intrigued. Maybe all three. As he reached for the door, Serenity's voice stopped him. Wayne. He turned. She looked at him steadily, her expression unreadable. For what it's worth. I didn't come here to destroy you. He held her gaze, unsure if he believed her. Then why are you here? A faint, knowing smile curved her lips. Maybe because you needed to learn what it feels like to lose control. And with that, she disappeared into the adjoining room, the door closing quietly behind her. Wayne stood there for a long time, the echo of her words filling the silence. He had thought he was the one pulling the strings, the man with the plan. But now, standing in that empty room with the city glittering far below, he realized the truth. He hadn't just underestimated Serenity Windstone. He'd awakened her. And whatever she intended next, he wasn't sure if he wanted to stop it. The next morning, Wayne Reed didn't go to his office. He didn't check the markets or return calls. Instead, he called in a favor, a private investigator named Harris Vance, a man who owed him more than one quiet debt. Wayne's voice on the phone was sharp and clipped. I need you to dig into a company called Windstone Designs. I want everything. Financial records, partnerships, court filings, anything with the name Vanessa Cole attached to it. There was a pause. Harris's tone turned cautious. You think she's dirty? Wayne's jaw tightened. I think she's worse than that. He hung up before Harris could reply. For the rest of the day, Wayne couldn't focus. Serenity's words echoed through his head, the story of her father, of betrayal, of loss. Every time he tried to dismiss it as coincidence, The conviction in her voice returned to haunt him. By evening, the report arrived. A thick envelope. Confidential. Unmarked. Wayne tore it open and spread the documents across his desk. Bank statements. Contracts. Emails. And there it was, Vanessa Cole's signature, dated 15 years ago, authorizing a transfer of project funds into an offshore account under her control. Another document showed the legal filing that accused James Winstone, Serenity's father, of embezzlement. The evidence had come from an anonymous source. Wayne didn't need to guess who that was. He leaned back in his chair, the weight of it pressing down on him. He'd known Vanessa was ruthless. But this was deliberate destruction. And he had nearly used Serenity, the daughter of the man Vanessa ruined, as a pawn in his own petty revenge. Guilt twisted in his chest like a blade. That night, Wayne showed up at Serenity's hotel suite. She opened the door, surprised but not unwelcoming. "Wayne," she said quietly, "you look different." He held up the folder. "I have proof." Her brows furrowed. "Proof? About your father. Everything you said, it's true." Vanessa framed him. Serenity's breath hitched, just slightly. She reached for the folder with trembling hands, scanning the papers as her eyes darted across the evidence. For a moment, she didn't speak. Then she closed the folder and sat down slowly on the edge of the couch. "I told him," she whispered. "I told him she was lying. He never believed she'd do it. He said, people like her don't need to lie, Serenity, they have power." Wayne sat beside her, unsure what to say. She smiled faintly, though it was a smile of exhaustion. "He died still believing he'd failed us." Wayne's throat felt tight. He didn't fail. She did. Serenity looked at him then, her eyes glassy but strong. "You found all this. Why?" "Because I needed to know," Wayne said simply. "Because I owed you the truth." Silence fell. Not cold this time, just heavy. Real. Wayne cleared his throat softly. "There's something else. I found out who owns the old Winstone office building now." Serenity glanced up. "It's been rebranded. Blackwell Developments. Ethan Blackwell's company." Her jaw clenched. Her husband. Exactly. She stood. "Then I want to see it." The next morning, they drove through the old industrial district, a place Wayne rarely ventured. The roads were cracked. The air smelled faintly of rust and dust. The building stood at the end of the street, tall but faded, its name long removed from the front. The new glass logo read Blackwell Developments, but the foundation still bore faint etchings of the old one, Winstone Designs. Serenity stepped out of the car and walked toward it slowly, her heels clicking on the pavement. Wayne followed at a distance, watching her take it all in. She placed a hand on the rusted doorframe. The metal was cold, rough, unwelcoming. "This was his dream," she murmured. "He built this place with his own hands. I used to come here after school, sit in his office while he drew building plans. He used to say, 'A house isn't just walls and roofs, Serenity, it's the heart that lives inside it.'" Her voice cracked. "And she took that from him." Wayne stepped closer, his voice soft. "You don't have to do this." "Yes," she said firmly. "I do." She looked up at the building again, her shoulders straightening. "She took my home, my family, my name." Then she turned to him, eyes blazing. "But not my fire." Wayne stared at her, struck by the power in her voice. There was no bitterness there, just fierce resolve. For the first time, he saw not the woman he'd rescued, not the one he'd pitied, but the one who refused to break. Afterward, they walked to a small cafe nearby. Serenity sat across from him, quiet, her fingers tracing the rim of her coffee cup. "Do you ever think about what makes people like her?" she asked suddenly. "Vanessa." She nodded. "People who destroy others and never look back." Wayne exhaled. I used to think it was ambition. But now, I think it's fear. Fear of being forgotten. Fear of being powerless. Serenity smiled faintly. You sound like you've thought about it a lot. He shrugged. Maybe I've been both of them. Ambitious. Afraid. She studied him for a moment. You're not like her, Wayne. He laughed softly. You'd be surprised how much I was. The way he said it caught her attention, raw, self-aware. It was the first time he had ever spoken without pride. She leaned back in her chair. You know, for someone who acts like he has all the answers, you're not bad at admitting when you don't. He smiled. Don't get used to it. The quiet between them felt different now. Not silence, but peace. Over the next few days, they began working together, Wayne using his resources, Serenity her memory, to piece together what Vanessa had done. They tracked the old project files, found ex-employees willing to talk, uncovered payments made under false names. Each discovery pulled them closer to the truth, and closer to each other. There were moments, small, quiet ones, where Wayne caught himself watching her. The way she focused when reading documents, how she bit her lip when she was thinking, how her laughter, rare but genuine, could soften even his worst moods. And Serenity, though guarded, began to trust him, not with her secrets, but with her silence. He didn't fill it with empty words. He just stayed. One evening, they found themselves back at Wayne's penthouse, surrounded by folders and coffee cups. The city glowed beyond the windows, and fatigue had softened both their edges. Serenity leaned back on the couch, rubbing her eyes. I can't believe we've done all this in 3 days. Wayne smirked. You're relentless. You're one to talk. He chuckled quietly. Then, after a pause, said, You could have gone to the police with this. And let her bury the truth again? No. Serenity shook her head. This isn't about punishment. It's about exposure. I want her to see it unravel with her own eyes. Wayne nodded slowly. You want her to feel it. I want her to understand it, Serenity corrected. To look at me and realize the person she left in the gutter is standing again. He stared at her, admiring the quiet conviction in her tone. You're stronger than you think. She smiled without looking at him. I know. Something in his chest shifted. It wasn't admiration. It was something deeper, quieter. Dangerous. He pushed it down. Later that night, when Serenity stepped out onto his balcony, Wayne followed. The city wind tugged at her hair, and for a long moment, they stood side by side, neither speaking. Finally, she said, Do you ever think about redemption? He looked at her. For who? For people like us. He considered that. I don't think redemption is something you earn. I think it's something you choose. Every day. She turned to face him, her expression soft but unreadable. Maybe you're not as cold as you pretend to be. Don't tell anyone, he said, smiling faintly. It'll ruin my reputation. She laughed quietly, a sound that, to his surprise, made him feel lighter. Then she stepped closer, her eyes reflecting the city lights. Thank you, she said. For what? For believing me. Wayne didn't know what to say, so he just nodded. They stood there in the silence of the skyline, two people scarred by the same woman, finding unexpected comfort in each other's shadows. And for the first time in years, Wayne felt something that didn't come from power or control. He felt purpose. The next morning, Serenity came to his office with a folder of documents she'd found, old architectural blueprints with her father's signature. She placed them on his desk. He dreamed of rebuilding this city, she said softly. She destroyed that dream. But I can still finish what he started. Wayne studied her, the determination in her voice stirring something fierce inside him. He stood, walked around the desk, and met her gaze squarely. Then we take it all back. Serenity held his stare. Together. Together. And for the first time since meeting her, the word didn't feel like a deal. It felt like a promise. Sunday morning sunlight spilled across the marble terrace of the Riverside Grand, where Vanessa Cole Blackwell's post-wedding brunch shimmered like a magazine spread. White roses draped the tables. Champagne glasses sparkled under gold canopies. Guests in pastel suits and silk dresses drifted between laughter, gossip, and soft piano music. To anyone else, it looked like perfection. To Wayne Reed and Serenity Windstone, it looked like a stage. They arrived late, uninvited but unshaken. As their car rolled up to the hotel, Wayne glanced at Serenity in the passenger seat. Her expression was calm, unreadable, the morning light painting gold across her dark curls. "Are you sure you're ready for this?" he asked quietly. Serenity turned her head slightly, lips curving into a faint smile. "I've been ready for years." Wayne gave a small nod. "Once this starts, there's no turning back." Her voice was soft but steady. "I don't intend to." He looked at her for a moment longer, then exhaled. "Let's end this." Inside, the brunch was already in full swing. Vanessa, radiant in white silk, moved from table to table with her husband, Ethan Blackwell, greeting investors and friends like royalty surveying her kingdom. Laughter trailed her every word. Until she saw them. Wayne and Serenity walked in together, he in a charcoal gray suit, she in a sapphire blue dress that caught the light like water. They didn't rush or hide, they simply entered, and the energy in the room shifted. Conversations faltered. Cameras lifted. Vanessa's smile froze mid-sentence. "Well," she murmured, setting her champagne flute down. "It seems ghosts don't like to stay buried." Ethan frowned. "What's wrong?" "Nothing," she said tightly. "Just a mistake I thought I'd already erased." Across the terrace, Serenity and Wayne approached the main table. The guests whispered, their curiosity electric. Vanessa greeted them with that same practiced grace. "Wayne," she said sweetly. "And Serenity, was it? What an unexpected surprise." Wayne's reply was smooth. "We didn't want to miss your celebration. It's not every day someone gets away with everything." Her eyes flashed. "What are you implying?" Serenity smiled faintly. "Oh, we wouldn't want to ruin your day." Vanessa's teeth clenched. "Then don't." But Serenity didn't move. She reached for a nearby champagne glass and tapped it gently with a spoon. The sound echoed through the terrace, soft but commanding. Conversations died. Cameras pointed. Vanessa's smile stiffened. "What are you doing?" Serenity turned to the crowd, her voice clear and elegant. "A toast," she said, "to the happy couple." The guests cheered politely. Vanessa exhaled a shallow laugh, trying to recover. "Oh, how thoughtful." Serenity continued, her gaze fixed on Vanessa. "To those who build their castles on other people's ashes, may the foundation finally crack." The word slid across the terrace like glass, sharp, cold, and impossible to ignore. The air went still. Vanessa blinked, her perfect smile faltering. "Excuse me." But Serenity didn't look away. "You've built a beautiful empire, Mrs. Blackwell. Some say it's indestructible. But the funny thing about truth, it doesn't disappear. It just waits." Gasps rippled through the crowd. A few people raised their phones, recording quietly. Vanessa's voice trembled under the pressure of restraint. "I don't know what game you're playing, but—" "Oh, you do," Serenity interrupted softly. "You played it first." A murmur rose through the guests. Wayne watched Vanessa's mask crack, just slightly. "I should have known," she hissed. "You're that little girl. Wind something." "Windstone," Serenity said evenly. "The name you buried with false charges and forged signatures." Vanessa's eyes widened. "You have no proof." Wayne stepped forward. Actually, she does. He nodded toward the back of the crowd, where a man with a camera stood, Harris Vance, Wayne's investigator. He lifted his phone slightly, signaling. At that exact moment, across dozens of screens, notifications began to ping. Emails. Push alerts. News updates. The headline hit the live feed before anyone could blink. Vanessa Cole Blackwell under investigation for corporate fraud and embezzlement. Gasps filled the terrace. Phones lit up like fireflies. Vanessa's face drained of color. What is this? Serenity's voice didn't rise, but it cut through the chaos like a blade. Justice. Panic broke through the elegance of the brunch. Guests whispered frantically. Journalists lifted their cameras. Ethan's jaw tightened as he pulled Vanessa aside, his voice harsh and low. You told me this was handled, Vanessa. I don't know how. Yes, you do, Serenity said quietly. She stepped forward, close enough that Vanessa could see the calm fury in her eyes. You didn't just ruin a business. You destroyed a family. My father believed in you. He trusted you. And you killed him with your lies. Vanessa's voice cracked. He was weak. He made mistakes. He believed in people like you, Serenity said. That was his only mistake. Wayne stood beside her now, silent but solid, his presence like a shield. Vanessa turned to him, desperate. You think you're better than me? You were nothing without me, Wayne. I made you. Wayne's expression didn't change. No. You made me forget who I was. She reminded me. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. The hotel manager appeared, trying to control the chaos, but it was too late. The story was already everywhere. One journalist, a young woman from the Daily Ledger, stepped forward. Miss Winstone, she called out. Are you confirming that Vanessa Cole Blackwell was involved in the Winstone embezzlement scandal? Serenity turned slightly toward her. I'm not confirming, she said. I'm proving. She lifted a folder from her clutch. Documents, receipts, signed authorizations, all originals. The journalist's camera zoomed in. Vanessa's hands shook. You can't, this is illegal, you can't just. Neither could you, Serenity said. Wayne's investigator spoke quietly into his phone, nodding once. It's done, he murmured. Across the terrace, more phones buzzed. The story spread faster than champagne spilling across a white tablecloth. Vanessa tried to shout above the noise, but her voice was lost in the storm. Ethan stepped back from her, his face pale. You dragged me into this, he said under his breath. You said it was over. She reached for him, but he pulled away. Don't touch me. The sound of sirens echoed faintly in the distance. Serenity lowered the microphone, her tone calm and almost gentle. You always said the truth would never catch you. Looks like it finally did. Vanessa's breath came fast and shallow, her perfect facade cracking entirely now. You, she started, but her voice failed. She looked at Serenity, really looked, and for the first time, fear replaced arrogance. Serenity leaned close, her words quiet enough for only Vanessa to hear. This isn't revenge, Vanessa. It's reclamation. By the time the police arrived, the brunch had dissolved into chaos. Reporters swarmed. Guests hurried out. Vanessa was led away, her eyes wild with disbelief, shouting that she'd been framed. But no one listened. Wayne and Serenity stood apart from it all, by the terrace railing overlooking the city. The wind picked up, tugging gently at Serenity's hair. Wayne glanced at her. You were magnificent, he said softly. She didn't smile. It's not over. Not yet. It's enough for now, he replied. You did what no one else could. She looked out at the skyline, her reflection mingling with his in the glass barrier. It wasn't about proving her wrong, she said. It was about proving my father right. Wayne watched her, admiration flickering in his chest like a quiet flame. "You know," he said after a moment, "I thought I brought you into this for my revenge." She turned to him, her expression soft. "And now?" "Now I realize," Wayne murmured, "you were the one teaching me what it really means to fight." For the first time that day, Serenity smiled, a small, tired, but genuine smile. "Guess we both needed saving." He reached for her hand, not for appearance, not for the cameras, but because he wanted to. And for a fleeting second, standing in the aftermath of destruction, it felt like something new had begun. The whispers of the crowd faded. The sirens moved farther away. All that remained was the quiet hum of truth settling into the air like the final note of a song. That night, as they left the hotel, Serenity looked back one last time. The once grand brunch now looked like the ruins of an empire. Wayne followed her gaze. "It's strange," he said. "You'd think victory would feel cleaner." "It never does," she replied. "Real justice always leaves a little dirt behind." They walked to the car in silence, the city lights stretching endlessly ahead of them. In that silence, Wayne knew something had changed, not just in the world around them, but inside them both. The war was over. But the story was just beginning. The scent of champagne still lingered in the air, but now it mixed with fear. Cameras flashed like lightning across the terrace as chaos took hold. Guests stumbled over white linens, whispers turning into shouts, and in the center of it all, Vanessa Cole Blackwell stood trembling, her perfect world collapsing around her. "Turn those cameras off," she snapped, her voice cracking. "You have no right, none of you." But the reporters didn't stop. The guests didn't look away. And Serenity Windstone stood still, calm amidst the storm. Her sapphire dress caught the sunlight, her chin lifted as she faced the woman who once destroyed everything she loved. The years of pain and silence had condensed into this single moment. Vanessa's eyes locked onto her. The fragile smile she'd worn earlier was gone. Now there was only rage, raw and unfiltered. "You think you can destroy me, street girl?" she spat, her voice venomous. "You think dragging me through mud will make you clean?" Serenity's tone was quiet but razor-sharp. "No, Vanessa. You did that yourself." The words landed like a strike. For a heartbeat, the whole terrace fell silent. Then Vanessa lunged forward, her heels clattering against the marble, fury twisting her face. But Wayne stepped between them instantly, his hand firm, his eyes like steel. "That's enough," he said. "Get out of my way," she screamed. "You're both finished. I'll make sure of it." Wayne didn't move. "You've done enough damage, Vanessa. To her. To me. To everyone who trusted you." "You don't know what you're talking about," she shouted, but her voice broke halfway through. "You think she's some kind of saint? She's been using you." Serenity's calm never wavered. "You project too much, Vanessa. I don't need to use anyone. I learned that from watching you." Vanessa trembled, her breath quick and uneven. She turned toward the guests, desperate for control, desperate for sympathy. "She's lying," she cried. "This woman is a con artist. A manipulative, street-bred fraud." Her words cut short when two uniformed officers appeared at the entrance, their badges glinting in the light. "Mrs. Vanessa Cole Blackwell," one of them said firmly. Vanessa froze. What is this?" "We have a warrant for your arrest," the officer continued, stepping forward. "Charges include corporate fraud, financial embezzlement, and obstruction of justice." The terrace erupted again, gasps, murmurs, disbelief. "No," Vanessa whispered. "No, no, no." The officer took her arm gently, but she jerked away. "You can't do this. I'm Vanessa Cole. I own this city." Serenity's voice was soft, almost pitying. "Not anymore." The officers guided her away as flashes exploded from every direction. Her husband, Ethan, didn't intervene. He stood aside, jaw tight, eyes full of something between anger and regret. As Vanessa was led down the steps, she turned back one last time, her eyes burning into Serenity's. "This isn't over," she screamed. "You'll regret ever crossing me." Serenity didn't flinch. "I already did. Years ago." And with that, Vanessa was gone. The aftermath unfolded slowly. The terrace emptied, leaving only the echoes of whispers and the faint hum of the city below. Wayne and Serenity stood near the railing again, watching as the police cars pulled away. For the first time that day, the tension broke. Wayne exhaled heavily, running a hand over his face. "It's done," he said quietly. Serenity's gaze followed the flashing lights disappearing into the distance. "It's only the beginning." Wayne looked at her. The sunlight framed her face, soft, radiant, and strong. The woman he'd met on a street corner looked nothing like this one, yet everything about her was still real. "You didn't just save me from humiliation," he said slowly, his voice lower now, almost reverent. "You saved my soul." Serenity's eyes flickered toward him. "I didn't save you, Wayne." He frowned slightly. "Then what did you do?" She met his gaze fully. "I only reminded you it still existed." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The city noise faded beneath the rush of the wind and the beating of their hearts. Wayne took a hesitant step closer. "You know," he said softly, "when I found you that night, sitting on that sidewalk, I thought I was buying control of the story. I thought I was the one in charge." Serenity tilted her head, a faint smile touching her lips. "You were never in control." "Not really." He chuckled under his breath. "I'm beginning to see that." She turned to face him fully, her expression softening. "You wanted revenge," she said. "But what you needed was closure." "And you?" he asked quietly. "What did you need?" She hesitated. "To stop running from my past." They stood inches apart now. The late afternoon sun dipped low, throwing gold light across the terrace. Wayne studied her face, the strength in her eyes, the calm in her voice. 4 years, his life had been about precision, control, winning. But in this moment, all of that felt small. "Serenity," he said, almost whispering her name like it carried something sacred. "You changed everything." She looked up at him, her voice barely a breath. "So did you." For a moment, silence stretched between them, charged and fragile. Then Wayne reached out, hesitated, then touched her hand. Her fingers trembled slightly, but she didn't pull away. The contact was simple, but it burned. All the anger, the tension, the pain of what they'd lived through, it all hovered in that space between them, transforming into something else entirely. Something neither of them had expected. "I don't know what this is," Wayne said quietly, his thumb brushing her skin. "But it feels real." Serenity's lips curved into a faint smile. "That's because it is." The sound of the city faded again, the traffic, the chatter, the chaos. There was only the two of them, suspended in a quiet moment of peace after a storm that had nearly broken them both. Then, without overthinking, without restraint, Wayne leaned forward. Serenity didn't step back. Their lips met, not in the gentle way of fairy tales, but in the raw, trembling way of people who had fought too long, bled too hard, and finally let themselves feel again. It was a kiss born from ruin and redemption, from fire and forgiveness. When they finally pulled apart, Serenity exhaled softly, her forehead resting against his. "You thought you were saving me," she murmured. "But maybe I was saving you too." Wayne smiled faintly. "Maybe we both needed saving." They stood like that for a long time. No cameras, no audience, no act. Just truth. Below them, the city kept moving, indifferent to the storms and stories unfolding in its heart. But for Wayne Reed and Serenity Winstone, time itself seemed to pause. Because in that fragile silence after destruction, something new had begun, something neither of them had planned for, but both of them desperately needed. Later that night, as they left the hotel, Serenity glanced at the reflection of flashing headlines across the glass doors. Her own name appeared beside his. Billionaire and the Mystery Woman, The Fall of Vanessa Cole. She let out a quiet laugh. "Well," she said, "I guess I'm news now." Wayne slipped his jacket over her shoulders. "They'll call it scandal," he said. "But someday, they'll call it something else." "What's that?" He smiled. "Justice." As they walked out into the cool night air, Serenity's fingers brushed his once more. This time, she didn't let go. The world behind them burned with gossip and flashbulbs, but ahead, there was only the quiet glow of possibility. The world had seen the fall of Vanessa Cole. Now it wanted another spectacle. Headlines screamed across every digital front page, twisting what they didn't understand. Billionaire Wayne Reed and the beggar girl who broke high society. Street princess or strategic mistress. Reed's career on the brink, all for love. Every morning, Serenity woke to a new headline, a new insult, a new reason for people to talk. The internet called her everything from a gold digger to a fraud. The same city that once ignored her on the streets now dissected every dress she wore, every glance she shared with Wayne. She'd thought surviving the streets was hard. This was worse. The glass walls of Wayne's penthouse shimmered with the light of early dawn. Serenity stood by the window, wearing one of his oversized shirts, her arms folded as she stared at the skyline. Below, New York pulsed with noise and judgment. Wayne's reflection appeared beside hers in the window. "You're awake early," he said softly. She didn't turn. "You should have told me it would be like this." He moved closer. "Like what?" She exhaled slowly. "Being hated for something you didn't do." Wayne's jaw tightened. "They'll get over it." "Will they?" she asked quietly. "You've worked your whole life for your reputation, Wayne. For your name. And now you're being dragged through the mud because of me." He took a step closer until his voice was a murmur against her ear. "You really think I care about what people who don't even know me say?" She turned, meeting his eyes. "Your investors care. Your board cares. The people who keep your empire standing, they care." For the first time in a long while, there was fear behind her strength. "I won't be the reason you lose everything," she whispered. Wayne stared at her, the morning light cutting across his face. "Serenity, I've lost everything before. Money, trust, love. None of it ever mattered. Then what does?" His hand brushed her cheek, slow and deliberate. "You." She froze, her breath catching. "They don't define my worth anymore," he said. "You do." Later that day, they walked into Reed Tower together. Silence followed them down every corridor. Employees stared discreetly, some with curiosity, some with judgment. The whispers were constant. "She's the one. From the street, right? Must be one hell of a story." Serenity ignored them, though her hands trembled slightly at her sides. In the boardroom, 12 executives waited. The company logo gleamed behind them like a crown. The chairman, an older man with steel-gray hair, cleared his throat. "Mr. Reed," he began, "we need to address the situation. The press has exaggerated certain details, and shareholders are uneasy. They feel your recent choices may be affecting the company's credibility." Wayne leaned back in his chair, unshaken. "You mean my relationship?" "Exactly." A heavy pause filled the room. Wayne's gaze swept across the table. "Let me make one thing clear," he said evenly. "My personal life doesn't need your approval. My performance does. And last quarter, we grew 12% in revenue. So unless my relationship starts lowering our numbers, this conversation is over." The executives exchanged uneasy glances. One of them muttered, "Still public perception." "Public perception," Wayne interrupted, is a distraction. I've spent half my life trying to control it. Now I'm done pretending." He stood, adjusting his cufflinks. This company was built on truth and innovation. If anyone has a problem with me standing beside a woman who embodies both, they can find employment elsewhere. The silence that followed was thick and final. Serenity watched him, all flickering behind her calm. When the meeting ended and the room emptied, she turned to him. "You didn't have to do that," she said softly. "Yes," he replied. "I did." That evening, Serenity sat alone in his study, flipping through an old sketchbook. Inside were the remnants of her father's dreams, blueprints of towers and homes, the legacy that had been stolen. Her fingers traced the faded ink. Wayne entered quietly, carrying 2 mugs of coffee. "You still draw?" She smiled faintly. "Not like I used to. But these," she tapped the pages gently, "these were my world once. Before it all disappeared." He sat beside her. "You never really lost it, Serenity. You just forgot how to hold it." She looked at him, then at the sketches again. "Maybe you're right." They sat in silence for a moment, the city lights flickering through the glass. Then she turned toward him. "I want to do something," she said suddenly. "Something that matters. Something that rebuilds what Vanessa destroyed, not just for me, but for others." Wayne studied her. "What are you thinking?" Her eyes lit with a quiet fire. "The Windstone Foundation. For women who've lost everything, home, family, dignity, because of people like her. A place that gives them back their skills, their strength, their second chance." Wayne smiled slowly. "You've already thought this through." She nodded. "For a long time. I just never had the means. Now you do." She blinked, uncertain. "You'd help me?" "Help you," he said. "No. I'll fund it. You'll run it." Tears stung her eyes before she could stop them. "Wayne, this isn't about." "It's about redemption," he said quietly. "Yours. Mine. Ours." Weeks later, cameras flashed again, but this time, not in mockery. A sleek marble building stood proudly in the heart of the city, its sign freshly unveiled, the Windstone Foundation. Reporters gathered outside, microphones in hand, as Serenity stepped up to the podium. The crowd went silent. She took a breath, her voice steady and warm. "There was a time I believed the world only had 2 kinds of people, those who build empires and those who get crushed under them. I was wrong." Flashes erupted. "Sometimes," she continued, "the ones who've been broken learn how to build again, but better. Stronger. Kinder." She looked toward Wayne, who stood at the edge of the crowd, watching her with quiet pride. "This foundation," she said, "isn't just about me. It's for every woman who's ever been told she doesn't belong. For every person who's been written off as worthless. Because value isn't something society gives you, it's something you reclaim." Applause thundered through the plaza. For a moment, Serenity's eyes glistened. The same woman who once slept under city lights now stood before the same world that ignored her, no longer a victim of its cruelty, but a defiance of it. That night, after the event, Wayne found her standing on the rooftop garden overlooking the city. The air was warm, scented with roses from the foundation's courtyard below. "You were incredible," he said softly. She smiled. "You mean I didn't embarrass your board?" He chuckled. "They're terrified of you." "Good." He stepped closer. "So how does it feel? To finally have your name back up there, in lights?" She turned to him, the skyline glowing behind her. "It doesn't feel like getting it back," she said quietly. "It feels like becoming it again." He looked at her, really looked, and realized she was no longer the woman from the sidewalk, or even the woman at Vanessa's wedding. She was Serenity Windstone in full, graceful, unshakable, and free. "You've changed," he murmured. She shook her head gently. "No, Wayne. I just stopped hiding who I was." He smiled. "Then promise me something." "What?" "Never bow again. Not to anyone." She laughed softly. "Only if you promise to never stand above me." He reached for her hand, their fingers intertwining as the city lights stretched endlessly below them. "Deal," he said. For once, there was no need for words. The world might still doubt them, might still whisper and sneer, but up here, away from the noise, it didn't matter. They had found something rarer than power or revenge. Something real. That night, as Serenity drifted to sleep beside him, the moonlight spilling across the sheets, Wayne watched her and thought of everything they'd endured, the pride, the pain, the fall, and the rise. She wasn't the woman he'd rescued. She was the woman who had taught him what it meant to be alive. And for the first time in years, Wayne Reed felt peace, not the kind that came from silence or victory, but from love that had weathered the world and still stood tall. Because Serenity Windstone was no longer the beggar girl. She was the heartbeat of his redemption. And together, they were proof that even in a world that worships power, love, love, remains the most defiant force of all. Morning sunlight streamed through the tall glass windows of the Windstone Foundation headquarters, glinting off banners that read "Rebuilding Lives. Restoring Dignity." The courtyard overflowed with press, cameras, and guests, investors, social leaders, and hundreds of women whose lives had already begun to change under Serenity's vision. Serenity Windstone stood at the podium, poised and radiant in a white suit that shimmered subtly in the light. The same world that once passed her by now waited on her every word. "They called me the Billionaire's redemption," she began, her voice steady, clear. "But the truth is, I'm no one's redemption. I'm proof that broken doesn't mean finished." The crowd quieted. Years ago, I stood on a sidewalk outside a restaurant, invisible. People walked past without seeing me, without knowing that the person they ignored once had a name, a dream, a family. But that day, someone stopped. She smiled softly, glancing toward the front row where Wayne sat. He was watching her with that quiet pride she'd grown used to, never possessive, never claiming her, simply believing in her. "He didn't save me," she continued. "He reminded me that I could save myself. And this foundation, it isn't about charity. It's about second chances, because every person, no matter how far they've fallen, deserves a chance to rise again." Applause rippled through the courtyard. Flashbulbs popped like fireworks. Wayne leaned back in his chair, a faint smile curving his lips. In that moment, she wasn't the girl from the street anymore. She was a force, a vision. As Serenity stepped away from the podium, reporters surged forward, calling her name. "Miss Windstone. How does it feel to be called the Billionaire's miracle? Is it true you're planning to expand internationally? Are you and Mr. Reed engaged?" She laughed gently, raising her hand. "One question at a time, please." A reporter shouted from the back, "Do you believe love was the real miracle here?" Serenity's eyes softened. She turned toward Wayne and answered, "Love wasn't the miracle. It was the reason." Later, inside the Foundation's glass atrium, the noise faded into a quiet hum. Guests mingled over champagne and soft piano music. Wayne found Serenity standing by the tall window overlooking the garden. The breeze caught the ends of her hair as she watched the women outside, many of them new residents, planting flowers in the Foundation's courtyard, laughing for the first time in a long time. He stepped beside her. "You gave them their smiles back." She looked up at him. "No. They gave them to themselves. I just handed them the mirror." Wayne chuckled. Still modest, even after changing half the city. Serenity tilted her head, amused. "Someone has to keep you humble." He grinned, leaning closer. "I've heard that's a full-time job." They shared a quiet laugh before the silence settled comfortably between them again. Then Wayne spoke softly, his tone more serious. "Funny how one wedding changed everything." Serenity turned toward him, her eyes gentle. "No, Wayne," she said, her voice low but sure. "One choice did." Their eyes held for a long moment, the weight of everything unsaid resting peacefully between them, the pain, the battles, the forgiveness. Outside, the women in the courtyard released a flock of white doves. The birds rose in a sweeping arc, filling the sky with a soft rush of wings. Serenity watched them, emotion tightening her throat. "Do you see that?" she whispered. "Every one of them has a story like mine. Maybe worse. But look at them now." Wayne's gaze never left her. "I'm looking," he said softly. "And I see you." Hours later, as dusk painted the sky gold and violet, the last of the guests departed. The courtyard was empty except for Serenity and Wayne, standing where it had all begun, under the archway engraved with the foundation's motto, "Rise Again." The garden lights flickered on, washing everything in soft amber. Serenity exhaled deeply. "Do you ever think about how close we came to missing this?" Wayne nodded. "All the time. One wrong turn, one different choice." She smiled faintly. "I almost didn't look up that day. I almost ignored you. I almost drove past," he said. She turned to him. "Then maybe miracles don't come from heaven, Wayne. Maybe they happen when two broken people stop pretending they're whole." He reached for her hand, threading his fingers through hers. "If that's what a miracle is, then I'll believe in them forever." She leaned against him, her head resting on his shoulder. "You know," she murmured, "they'll keep talking about us. They'll keep trying to fit us into their headlines and their labels." "I know. They'll call me the woman who redeemed a billionaire." Wayne smiled. "And I'll call you what you are." "What's that?" He turned to her, his voice barely a whisper. "My beginning." Serenity's breath caught. "After everything we've been through, you still make words sound dangerous." "Only because you make them mean something," he said, his thumb brushing her jaw. She looked at him, eyes shining in the soft light. "You know what I realized today?" "What's that?" "That redemption isn't something someone gives you. It's something you choose." Wayne smiled. "And you chose it beautifully." They stood there, watching the lights of the city below, the hum of life moving on as if the world itself was exhaling with them. A few months later, the Windstone Foundation expanded to 3 new cities. Photos of Serenity visiting shelters, giving speeches, and holding workshops filled news feeds across the country. But this time, the headlines were different. "From streets to strength, Serenity Windstone's foundation empowers thousands." Once homeless, now a hero, the woman who turned pain into purpose. The mockery was gone. What replaced it was admiration, respect, and inspiration. In one viral interview, when asked what message she had for the world, Serenity said, "Never let the world tell you who you are. It'll always see what's broken before it sees what's beautiful. But beauty, real beauty, is what rises after the fall." Back at their home overlooking the river, Serenity stood on the balcony one evening, watching the city lights shimmer like stars caught in glass. Wayne joined her, wrapping his arm around her waist. "The world looks different from up here," she whispered. "It's not the world that changed," he said. "It's you." She smiled, resting her hand over his heart. "Then maybe that's what redemption really is, not fixing the past, but seeing it from a higher place." He pressed a kiss to her forehead. "And you climbed there on your own." She looked up at him. "No, Wayne. We climbed there together." As the night deepened, the city faded into quiet. Serenity leaned against him, her head resting against his chest, listening to the steady rhythm of his heart. That rhythm, the sound of survival, of forgiveness, of love found in impossible places, was the truest miracle of all. Because in the end, this wasn't a story about revenge. It wasn't even about redemption. It was about rebirth. About a man who learned that control couldn't heal him. About a woman who realized that losing everything was what made her unstoppable. and about a love that rose, quietly but powerfully, from the ruins of pride and pain. In the garden below, the foundation light spelled out a single word in soft gold: hope. Serenity smiled at the sight, her voice a whisper carried on the breeze. Funny how everything can begin again, if you just believe it can. Wayne's arm tightened around her. "Here's to beginnings," he said. And as the stars glimmered over the city that once broke them both, Wayne Reed and Serenity Winstone stood hand in hand, no longer billionaire and beggar, no longer broken and lost, just two souls reborn in the miracle they built together.